Well, that's new. I hope that doesn't come across. I was not expecting that. Well, anyway, this is There Will Be Bourbon. Tis I, Eric Bandazeski, and I am with Andrew. I already forgot his last name. It's Mullins. It's not Mick Mullins. It's Andrew Mullins, and I will describe who this fine young American is just after I discuss with you what bourbon we will be having tonight. It will be a little IW Harper 15 year. This is my favorite thing that is not produced by the Buffalo Trace Distillery. It's actually the bottle that I really love as well. Look at that thing of beauty. Looks like straight out of 1950s Mad Men. The cool thing about them, real quick, as I bring that up, is that they're made by the Diageo company, right? So Diageo brought Bullet, they brought a few other things, and then this brand hadn't been sold in the United States for about the last, I think it was, they stopped selling it probably like the last 20 years. So like from 95 to 2015, I believe. But the brand's been around since the late 1870s or early 1870s. Diageo bought a bunch of products and they brought this one, and they make it at the new Wetzel or the new Bernheim distillery, the Stiller Wetzel, I believe it's called. That's where Bullet's made as well. And Bullet, if you don't know, is essentially just Four Roses because they rent, I guess, is a way to refer to it, as some of their yeast strands and their recipes. So it's just a little different version of Four Roses. I actually think it's better than the Four Roses stuff, but to each their own, obviously, which we will find out because once we see what Mr. Mullins is drinking, then we can go on to that. But if you can find IW Harper 15 year, even the regular one is pretty solid. The IW Harper, the regular is about 30 to 40 bucks. It's only an 81 proof, I believe. And this one's at 86 proof. MSRP is at like 75. I found it usually around that price, but as with everything that's aged, prices have gone up. I just found it in San Francisco on Memorial Day, actually, in the city for 109. So 109 is not excessive, right? When we get into some of the prices you see on some stuff that we already have discussed many times on this show, you'll realize it's best to just walk away. But, hey, I didn't. So, Drew, what's up, brother?
Hey, man. Just living the dream.
You're living the dream too, huh? So no nightmares recently?
The kids, the wife, the reason why I'm living the dream is because the wife's putting the kids to bed.
There you go. So real quick, before I tell everybody about you, you do like to imbibe in the bourbon as well. So what do you got going on over there tonight?
Well, I mean, I've got my usual suspects that are
great movie.
They're not in arm's reach. I'm getting into the rise. I was a Scotch drinker forever.
Horrible.
No, it's not. That's fine. When I drink, bourbon. But Scotch prices went up.
Yep.
With tariffs, I guess, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I refused to pay $62 for a $45 bottle of Scotch.
That's pretty ballsy considering what's been done to the bourbon prices, though.
Yeah. Not knowing the bourbon.
62 over 45 is not bad compared to stuff that should be 20 going for 120.
Yeah, and the Scotches the single malts I like are pretty much Isla whiskeys. So okay. I'll drink the other ones, but I just really I favor the stronger, peatier.
So you do like the smoke because the Isla stuff is the stuff that's more peaty and smoky, right?
Right.
Which is and that's exactly why what I don't like.
Pardon me?
That's exactly the Scotch I don't like. No, I like the fruitier stuff. The stuff that tends to be a little bit more on the sweeter side. That's why I love bourbon so much, because I started with Scotch. That's the first thing I got into. My uncle got me into it, and then my brother, I was drinking those in Macallans. And I remember going to Vegas once. I had just re-enlisted, right? This was like 2006, maybe. So I had entirely too much money to spend, and I was like, "Oh, look, Macallan 25-year shot, right? Never had it before. Got it." And to me, it tasted no better than the 12-year. So that was a very powerful and expensive lesson, is that never fall for the age statement, because it's not that it's not good. It's just you may be expecting something that the price is not going to live up to. And I don't know how it goes with Scotch so much, but as with bourbon, like there tends to be a sweet spot, right? And I think the 15-year is stuff that's kind of just on that tail end of the sweetness, because anything past that, you tend to get into the more of the oaky stuff, because the evaporation and the weathering just takes its toll. And if you're in the oak, great, but some people aren't. I don't mind it, but I do prefer stuff to be a little bit more on the vanilla and caramel side, which is
Okay.
I think
Well,
like the 12
you're
to
out there on the
15
left
years like
coast
that
anyway,
sweet
so
spot.
that kind of
What's
left
that?
coast kind of, jives with your sweetness.
Thank you. See, you noticed. But also real quick, look, America, there's this thing called fashion, right? And
Right.
here on the show, we're going to start getting a little bit more fashionable. No, we're not. But tonight, we do have the khaki members only jacket, and we got the Joe Kent for Congress shirt. All right. So if you are in Washington's District 3, you need to hit up Joe Kent, vote for him, donate. Let's get Joe Kent in Congress. All right. You know,
Yeah,
Joe?
yeah.
Joe's a
I'm
good dude.
supporting him as well.
That's how I got
I'm
this
wearing
shirt.
I don't know, something GSX kind of
Ah,
tactical shirt that I thought, would go okay with my my deplorables t-shirt underneath.
it's a
So
deplorable.
I just wanted a black t-shirt, so
I got well. That's why I bought the Stock and Mill coffee T-shirt because it was black.
Yeah.
So real quick, so you guys know who I'm talking to here, right? First off, Drew was a Navy SEAL, so I have two questions for you, Drew. Number one, did you
book.
shoot Osama bin Laden?
I did not.
Okay. Have you written a book?
No.
All right. So he's the most
I do not
anti-SEAL so far at this point already.
And my hair is, I've just forgotten about it anymore. I've never used hair products.
Never.
Never.
Because I'm looking at one of your pictures of you when you were deployed. I guess your hair's not. It looks the same. You actually look the exact same. Honestly, it's the exact same picture.
That's from not taking a bath for 3 days, and
that's pretty standard, right? Yeah. So okay, so Drew, you served for 23 years in the SEAL teams. Rose to the rank of Master Chief, and then you did the Mustang SEAL. Look at you commissioning as Mustang.
And the Mustang, just to be honest, because I don't want a bunch of Master Chiefs. The Master Chief thing, I don't want a bunch of Master Chiefs pouncing on me. I was up for Master Chief.
Mm-hmm. So you were promotable.
Yeah, I was up for it, and I had good. I was a early select candidate. And at the same time, it was like at the 17-year mark, and or maybe it was around 16-year mark, I guess. So I was kind of early, but I thought about, hey, I'll just put in a commission package, right? Mm-hmm. And the option usually is you can check the block for what was called an LDO, or you could check the block for warrant. Mm-hmm. And I said, nah, I don't want to be a warrant, and then run a training cell forever. Because where I was at the time, I was operating still. And so I just said, fuck it. Or can we say that on the air?
Yeah, you can say whatever the hell you want on here.
Yeah, and I just checked the block for LDO. So actually, it's a funny story. I went out on a deployment in 2002. So we were kind of early. We were in country early, doing some OPE and all that stuff.
What is OPE for those of us?
Operational preparation of the environment.
So you're prepping the battlefield. Yeah.
Yeah, battlefield stuff.
Okay. Yeah. So Army and Navy, little different terms. Got it.
Yeah, OPB, OPE. We use the same stuff. I probably got it wrong. No, but it was a joint team. It was an interagency team. Anyway, so I was on a recon, and on Falcon View, I got a message saying, "Hey, you got selected for lieutenant." Yeah. Or not lieutenant, a commission. And then I might have the order wrong, but almost within the same week, I got selected for Master Chief. So I had this dilemma, right? And at the time I was married, and I looked at, well, let's see, let's do.
It's all about money at that point. Right?
Retirement, 27 years, whatever. And it was just way better. So I turned down Master Chief. Now the thing is, when you're commissioned like that, you still are your highest enlisted rank.
Right.
You have to do
terms of pay.
Time and service, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't, you revert back. Okay. Mm-hmm. So for a while, I was when it came time to retire, I was going through my med board, and they were like, yeah, well, you're going to revert back. I'm like, yeah, fine, whatever. And so I had to go buy the freaking Master Chief whole uniform and all the stuff. And then I went to my med board because my squadron surgeon said, hey, you're pretty fucked up. Have you ever thought about that? And I'm like, nah, So anyways, long story short,
No, we don't do long stories short. We do long stories here.
Okay, this is long story.
There you go. Yeah, make short stories long, etc.
I'd had 4 shoulder surgeries. I'd had a hip surgery. I'd had a bunch of scopes on my knees. I'd fractured my ankle. I had plate in my foot, and then the bunch of other stuff, some TBI things, where so I went to the board, and they were like, the thing about being a SEAL is like, yeah, I could probably still stay in the Navy, and I was operating, but it was only because I worked out like a madman and ate a lot of stuff to make me not hurt all the time, right? And stayed deployed all the time, and so that worked for a while. But when they decided to say, hey, we're gonna medically retire you, that changed everything, because it actually set me up pretty well, being medically retired. And it was basically like, you can't do your job, right? You can't do your job from the standpoint of special pays and the actual qualification stuff. Now I could, but if I was going to be realistic, it was kind of like, well, if I'm gonna punch, this is the time to do it. And that was like 2010 or 2009. I actually went to the med board 2008, so it drug on for a year. And when they came back, it was approved. And so then I had to, when they medically retire you from the service, you retire at the highest pay grade you served at.
Right.
So me thinking I'm just going to have my little, farewell ceremony as a Master Chief, which is fine. I've been honored. But they said, oh, I got another message saying, hey, no, you're retiring as a Lieutenant 03. So I was a Master Chief for like 8 months.
Yeah.
Right. And the funny thing was, at the unit, at the SMU I was at, before I even put in the package, I went to my detailer. I talked to Warcom, talked to everybody, and I said, hey, if I get picked up, can I stay here? Right. It was either that or they're going to send me to a place where I could be used as well. But they said, sure. So like one day I'm an enlisted guy, and then we have a ceremony, and the next day I'm an officer and a lieutenant. It was pretty funny, but
yeah. No, but that is different. That's a significant amount of pay.
Yeah.
That's good. And then, good for you. So
100%.
let's back this up. Let's back this train up. All right. So that was 2009, 2010. And you said you did 27 years?
23.
Oh, okay. So what year did you come in? 80s?
I joined the Navy in 87.
Okay. So a little Cold War era?
Actually, yeah. And then I was on delayed entry. You get a little credit for, that works. But 88 was, you had to pick a rate back then, a rating, job, an MOS, Navy that was compatible with a SEAL team. So I chose Corpsman.
So that's all you wanted to do? Is there a reason why you went the Navy route or?
Yeah, pretty much because I was living out in California. I was born and raised out there.
Yeah.
And parents were divorced. I was the oldest child. So I was kind of like kicked out and kind of trying to figure out life at, 20 years old, 22, whatever. I worked in the oil fields for a while, offshore, framed houses, bartended, things like that. And then
world needs plenty of bartenders. Remember, great line from The Departed.
I mean,
just saying.
I made bank as a bartender.
I believe it.
Orange County and
there you go.
Lamar and San Clemente. But I had some friends I was playing rugby with. I started playing rugby after school, and I did some JC football stuff. And these rugby guys, a couple of them were Vietnam era SEALs. And whenever we'd be drinking the after party, they would start telling stories, right? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because, in the 80s, no one really knew who they were,
Yeah.
It was still kind of quiet.
There weren't any books written.
Yeah. No books written, other than like historical stuff but no, there I was knee deep in hair gel and grenade pins. Right?
Yeah. Always the hair gel. So you gotta love it.
And tattooed, sleeves. But it was like intriguing, and just so happens that the one guy who ended up being my mentor, he said, hey, Andy, you ever thought about, joining the Navy? Because I'd had a child from a marriage then who I just wasn't being a good dad. Let's just put that. Too young.
Okay. Right.
And I was concerned that I was going to repeat some mistakes that I grew up under, my parents were divorced and all that. So it just got to me one day, and I was not really sure what I wanted to do. And funny thing was, I was looking at the news one day, and that's when the Iran-Iraq Gulf, the Straits of Hormuz stuff was going on, where Iran was mining the Straits of Hormuz, and the USS Stark got struck by an Exocet, and a couple things, and it just made me mad. And so I said, screw it. So I joined, and did a screening test. You had to do the pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, the run, and then went to Corpsman A school. It's basically
okay.
91 Bravo.
That's what you chose to become a?
I chose it. They had
because I was going to feed into it.
Gunner's mate, bosun's mate, radioman, corpsman, and I asked my recruiter. I said, "Well, what do they need really bad?" He goes, "We really need corpsman bad. We're short. We're always undermanned." So I said, "Oh, okay, I'll do that." Then I went to Buds in '88, and I was on the long program because I got injured a little bit.
I feel like everyone in special operations that I've talked to has been on the long program. So is that usually how it works? Does anyone just make it first time through?
Yeah, they do. I mean, I think it depends on luck, to be honest with you.
I totally believe that. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's not easy, but I would assume if you're willing to stick it out, they're going to give you every opportunity to pass, right?
Yeah, they want you to graduate.
Right. Okay. So it's like every other military school. It's like,
they
until you quit, you're going to keep going.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Buds. The first phase is just a straight up gut check. You're just PTing all, every day and doing conditioning runs and just getting yelled at a lot and getting wet and sandy and everything. And it's just, building strength, getting strong, and seeing what you're made of, seeing how you work with other guys. You're in a little boat crew and how the officers lead and all that kind of stuff. And it's a big build up to Hell Week, which is like week 6, I think, first phase. And that starts, I'm probably going to say, you probably heard this 100 times, but that essentially starts Sunday, even though it doesn't really start until Sunday late afternoon or early evening. Mm-hmm. But when you wake up, if you've slept Saturday night, which you probably haven't, right? Not very well. So it's just a matter of sitting around and waiting for whatever is going to happen. And so I'm going to try some.
The bottle's popped. Oh, he's going Jameson Black Barrel.
Jameson now. I'm going to switch around.
So the Jameson Black Barrel is the one that's aged in a bourbon barrel, yeah? Or finished?
Yeah, it's triple distilled Irish jarred for a rich, smooth taste. I think it is a bourbon barrel.
Yeah, I think they finished it in the bourbon barrel. It's on there somewhere, but no. All right. Okay, so there you are.
Yeah, so there I am.
The hair gel is out.
Hair gel's out. I don't have any hair because they've shaved it all off, right? And that was liberating. I felt like G.I. Jane then.
I hear that movie is one of the most authentic ever made.
It is. And I got a G.I. Jane story you're going to love too.
Oh, I can't wait. All right.
Demi Moore story.
Oh, even better. Yeah. Here we go. Babe alert.
So, so Hell Week kicks off, and my buddy, Eddie, Farmer and Master Chief Hill, the two guys that were, they were still in, actually. Master Chief Hill, Bill Hill, he was the command master chief at SEAL Team 3 at the time. So cool. He gave me an unofficial screening test to see how I do. And for a kid who grew up literally on the beach, I wasn't a surfer, right? Yeah. I was a jock. So
did you swim or no?
Yeah, I swam in the ocean and stuff. Yeah, all my buddies played water polo and
actual swimmers.
Smoked dope and everything. And but they, so when it came time to do the 500-yard swim, it's the side stroke, combat swimmer stroke. And it's a stroke where instead of your arm coming out of the water like a normal side stroke, you have an underarm recovery, whatnot. Okay. I was so bad at the stroke that it looked like I was almost swimming backwards, right? It's like you do your sit-ups, push-ups, pull-ups, you get in the pool, you swim, you get out, put your boots and utes on, and you run 1.5 miles. Everybody was out of the pool and waiting when I got out. They're dressing. And so I failed that just absolutely miserably, and then finished the rest. And Bill Hill, to his credit, he said, "Hey, have you ever done this before?" And I'm like, "No, I don't even know how to breaststroke, man." And he worked with my stroke. He showed me,
yeah,
kickstroke and glide. It's simple.
right.
It's an easy thing to do once you figure it out. And I did it again that same day, and I knocked like 2 minutes off. So it was like more. All I needed was
you just need to learn the technique.
Learn
technique makes everything easier in life. It really does.
Yeah. So that then I went to Buds, and of course at that point we're training and doing whatever on the side with some other guys that were going in my class. It's not like today where they've got it down to like a production line. I mean, it's completely different today. But the everything's the same. It's just they've got a lot of more science behind who they screen and how they train them to avoid injuries,
right?
So they can get more people through. But the funny thing is, at the end of the day, the percentages don't change that much, right? You just get more. You get more applicants and a bigger pool to choose from,
right?
But
do you know the success rate?
Say again.
Do you know what the actual success rate of the average class is, or what they usually are looking for?
It's in the high 20s, sometimes low 30s. It depends. A lot of that depends on, like, if you looked at original classmates.
Yeah.
Like if you started out with class, like I started out with class 153, right? That was the last real hard Buds class, but that's another story.
Every class ever says that, I bet, right? Yeah.
Yeah, class 153. And we started out with like 160 guys, and half of those guys were like, they had just used Buds as an excuse to get off their ship. You know what I mean? They got orders.
Classic military story, right?
Yeah,
Get me out of here. I'll go do whatever you want.
Right. I deny it, and then they get there and there's attrition just in the pre-phase anyways. There's a pre-phase. So if you get rolled back now, you're in a new group of originals. And nothing is like, you're not seeing anything new. You pick up where you left off.
Right.
So it's not like, you can game it. And it was in March. So it was how Pacific Ocean is in March. It's freaking cold, man.
It's as far as I'm concerned, it's cold all the time. I come from the East. I come from Florida. I go from the Atlantic Ocean, where we can actually swim in our water comfortably.
Right.
And don't need to fear sharks.
Virginia Beach is the same way. It's like, 75.
Yeah, that doesn't exist out in your ocean.
Yeah. So San Diego, blah, blah, blah. Hell Week comes around, and my buddies, the guys, I said, "Hey man, it's going to suck. There's nothing you can do about it. No matter how strong you are in everything you do, there's something you can't do well, and they're going to find that thing and just, peel it away like a scab, and you're just going to be faced with figuring it out, right? And then that's the whole point, basically. Meeting the standards and whatnot. But they broke it down and said, "Hey man, when it gets rough, just break it down meal to meal. You know how it is." So the way they do it is every 6 hours you're getting fed breakfast, lunch, dinner, and mid-rats. And that's because you're burning up so much calories. You're not sleeping. You're just, they know they have to keep your caloric intake up. So, and then I played a little mental game too back then, because I told myself that, all right, if this was a mission, right, you'd have a 2-day insert, offset recon, right? You'd get on target on the 3rd day. And then you'd have a 2-day extract or exfil back to wherever. And I said, well, no one quits on the infill, mentally. You don't quit on the infill, right? Because you want to get to the target. When you're on the target, you don't quit. Can't quit, right? And then on the way home, you're freaking sprinting for the door, right? I mean, you're just trying to make it because you're done. And that's the kind of games I played, and it worked for me. I mean, it's like, I just. And the way they break out the boat crews, they do a height line. So, the tall guys, 1 through 6, that's boat crew 1. The next 6 guys, boat crew 2, et cetera, all the way down to the Smurfs, you know, the little guys, and they're the whatever boat crew number that is, right? But and throughout the whole week, you're getting tested. You don't sleep. I literally probably slept 2 hours from Sunday to being secured Friday early afternoon.
So throughout that entire week, there's no downtime. Cause you mean, you know how the soldiers are, or you guys, like, you could sleep anywhere if you give it a minute, you'll do it.
You fall asleep all the time.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I mean, you pass out, you hallucinate. I mean, you're doing, you know, boat paddles up and down the coast there in Coronado, and you're seeing sea monsters and hallucinating and you know, trying to kill ghosts and stuff like that, you know, because you don't know what's going on. And there's a saying, it's pretty famous by now because everybody uses it in all their books. It pays to be a winner, right?
It pays what?
It pays to be a winner.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're, you know, and everything's a contest, you know, so whatever it is, it's a contest between the other boat crews. So if you win, then you can like prop your boat up with your paddles, and guys can lay down for a little bit.
Okay.
But you always have to have one guy on watch.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, I think it's like Ranger School kind of thing. And, you know, there's a guy out there, he's holding all the paddles and he's like falling asleep, standing up. So we rotate every 5-10 minutes, whatever, you get cat naps. So you can grab sleep here and there.
So what about instructors? Are they constantly rotating instructors out?
Yeah. Yeah. So you know, it's like, you know, high five in a WWE or something like that, you know, where,
I figured.
Fresh guys.
It's kind of like being a drill sergeant. Like, yeah, you know, especially the first few weeks, you got people there all day. You can't stay all day, but someone has to be with them all day. So
right. And you know, also I look at them because I was a little bit older, you know, than the average guy. I was a couple of years older. In fact, I was older than everybody in my boot camp, to the point where my boot camp, this is, you know, going back to the beginning, my boot camp chief came in and he goes, "Mullins." You know, I think I was 26 or something like that. And he's like 25. And he goes, "I'm going to put you in charge. You're the master at arms." And now I was in a drill company, right? So when you go to boot camp, the drill company is all the fags who play instruments. So those are the guys who are going to be doing, you know, the parade part, right? And I didn't play an instrument, so all I was, you know, like the guy had to get them everywhere they needed to go. So he would leave me the list. I wouldn't see the guy all day long. So he was probably drinking. I don't know what he did, but I never saw my boot camp commander or my boot camp. It's like not seeing a drill instructor, right?
Yeah, like, where's this guy at? And, I guess I'm in charge. Fuck.
Yeah, so you know, the guys were like, these young kids are like, we can't get ready. There's not enough time. You know, you had to make your rack and you know, shave and brush your teeth, and I said, look, grab your blade, grab your toothbrush, piss in the shower, shave in the shower, brush your teeth. You know what I mean? And you know, get out there.
It's time management. That's all it is.
Yeah. One day he came back and goes, hey man, you can't tell him to do that. You can't tell him to piss in the shower. Okay.
Why can't you piss in the shower?
Okay. You know, anyway, back to buds. So
here we go.
Yeah, there we go. So it's like our boat crew's doing well. We're winning everything, almost everything, all the races and stuff, and it's all the big guys, and so we had a little bit of advantage. And of course, the Smurfs, the little guys, they have no chance, right? You know, just because, you know.
Wait, so hold on. Based on the current climate, I'm just curious. So you're trying to tell me that smaller humans aren't as strong or as effective as the larger humans?
No, it was just that because we were bigger, and, you know, some of us had strength advantages holding the boat up.
Oh,
is it running around everywhere we're going?
So if you're bigger, you're probably stronger than someone smaller.
Actually, we weren't, to be honest with you.
All right. Well, you ruined my setup, but yeah, go ahead.
But yes, you're stronger than if there was a different gender, maybe. Let's put it that way. But
I didn't say that.
I know you didn't. I didn't either. I said if there was.
That's true. It's semantics. Words have meaning.
No, they do. They do. But it was funny because, you know, those guys, they put out and they worked real hard. But you just never know. Sometimes it's just a matter of what the composition of the people are. Because I've seen
more of a mental thing, right?
Smurf boat crews kick everyone's ass.
Yeah.
Because
well, if you're weak mentally, you're not gonna. It doesn't matter how strong you are. You can't utilize it because you're too busy being weak mentally, right? All right, so there you go.
And these guys weren't really weak mentally. They just sometimes they had a disadvantage. So what we ended up getting was. When they started to deteriorate, there was like, when there was only like 3 of them left or 4 of them, they couldn't even hold the boat up, right? Because it's one of those inflatable. It's not a Zodiac, but you know what I mean. They're heavy, man. So they farmed them out. So they gave us they gave us one. They gave all the first 4 boat crews a Smurf, right? And of course, those little guys, they can't even reach the freaking underneath.
Did you name them Smurfs, or is this what they're referred to as?
That's just the traditional name.
Okay, so yeah, all right, that makes sense. They're short, so you're Smurf. Got it.
Yeah, and
you're a giant. How tall are you?
Well, at one point I was almost 6'3". I think I'm
okay.
I've maybe lost half an inch or something.
Yeah. Okay. So you're a big guy.
6'2".
You're a little too tall.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some things maybe, but chicks like it.
Hey-o. Married with kids. There you go, boys.
She's not here. Anyway, we get this extra guy, and he can't do anything. But he's got to have it. The instructors are screaming, "Why don't you have your head on the boat?" Blah blah blah. So we threw him in top of the boat. So we had to carry him around everywhere we went. So everything we're doing is this extra. And then he'd rotate and paddle, but how it is. It was just, you don't even remember half of it. But about Wednesday night, I don't know if you're familiar. Are you familiar with Coronado? Much?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
On the you have the Strand, where on the beach side is where the Bud's complex is, and across the street is the Naval Amphibious Base. So we would have to run across the. I can't even remember the name. I should be tattooed on me somewhere. Across the boulevard.
It might be. Have you checked?
Have I checked?
I said it might be. It might be tattooed on you somewhere. You just can't see it.
Anyway, so we had to run across the street, go to the NAB Chow Hall, and it was at night. And I remember stepping in a hole, like a pothole, and with my left leg, and I, jammed it. And I felt something in my hip. But at that point, I was just a freaking vegetable anyway. So I'm like, "Ow, that hurt," But they start to ease off a little bit on some of the stuff because you just can't do it. So instead, they just keep you wet, cold. You're dumping boat at the rocks. You're doing whatever, but it's not. They're checking you for all hypothermia and all that stuff, and you're starting to chafe real bad and whatnot. But I remember that, and then we made it to the mud pits. That's where you get, the winning boat crew gets secured, and everybody else gets hammered for another 2 or 3 hours, and then they secure everybody Hell Week on Friday. And then the next, you're off. Kind of the next week is hydrographic reconnaissance. The old school line and lead where you swim on line. This is like hydrographic reconnaissance, like for Tarawa and Utah Beach and stuff like that, where UDT guys or NCDU guys would swim in and take soundings like every 10 yards, and they would write it. They had a little waterproof board that they would write the depth that they got, because there would be a weight on the end, and every foot had a little knot in it. So then you'd go back, you'd take all those soundings, and you would draw like a cartography of the undersea, what the landing zone would look like. And that's how they'd pick, where they would do the landings. Like if it was too far out, if there was an obstruction or coral, whatever. So that they taught us that old school stuff for the next week. So you're not doing anything. It's a recovery week.
Yeah.
And the following week you start second phase, which at the time was land warfare. Now and then dive phase was last. They've switched that since then. And I remember our first 4-mile timed run. It's 2 miles down the beach and then 2 miles back in boots. And I started to run, and I made it about 300 yards, and then all of a sudden I couldn't walk, and my hip was killing me. So I went and got it checked out, and it turned out I had fractured the femoral neck of my hip.
Oh shit!
And that was significant because
yeah,
when I went to the regular doctors, they're like, yeah, that's a bad area to get a fracture because it's low blood supply, right? The prognosis usually isn't pretty good. You're going to have guaranteed arthritis or hip replacement at some point. And then I'm like, okay, well, how long does it take to heal? And I'm like, well, you might not even be able to stay in the Navy. We might have to kick you out of the Navy.
what?
Yeah. And so anyways, the medical department swooped me up and sent me up to Camp Pendleton, where the Marines are. Mm-hmm. And so I worked with the Force Recon guys for, just in training cell, like supporting them for a couple of months, just to kind of, to heal up, and came back and classed up with class and then finished with them. So that's my thing. But so my whole career, my left hip always hurt. Right? Yeah. I never got it.
I imagine that.
And turns out at the time when I was getting ready to get out, they MRI'd it and they go, yeah, man, you got a torn labrum in your hip and it looks really old and there's like no space there. So they went in and dremeled it a little bit and put a couple, sutures in it, repaired the labrum, and it worked for a while. But now I'm at the point now where my next surgeries are a replacement for my right arm, my right shoulder, and probably a hip replacement if I do it right.
Yeah, my dad, he's 73 as of May 14th. He just did one last year, and my brother's going in for his second hip replacement.
The other hip?
Yeah, he did his first one about 3 or 4 years ago, and now this second one he's doing, I think, it's either the end of this month or next month. But yeah, I mean, his is all because of just, he was an MMA guy. He's been fighting his whole life, and he was also a swimmer. So, he's just had so much wear and tear on the joints just from his life.
Yeah.
It doesn't help that he's a few years older than me, but he's still, up until recently, is still squats entirely too much weight, and but right, that's the trade-off, right? You want to be big and strong, you gotta put your body through some shit. So that's what he's doing. But no, like the way he's doing this one compared to the surgery he did a few years ago, now it's just like it's this robot they use. It's super precise and recovery super much quicker. And also, I would tell you to do it. I don't know if you're debating it or not. I don't know if it's something you're worried about.
No, I'm not debating it at all. It's actually kind of how I'm going to schedule it.
I gotcha.
We'll get, maybe later in the conversation, we'll get to post what I ended up having to do for my post kind of therapy, recovery, whatever. I went back to school and this, I just finished a master's degree. So
yeah, I was reading that. Okay. So you're, so you went out, you got out and then you went to school. Was that how it worked?
So, we're going to jump past a lot if you want.
Don't jump to this real quick. Cause then I'm going to go way back. Cause there's a few places I want to explore.
Okay.
But yeah. All right. So here we are. You're getting the master's.
And when I got out, I was like, I had all my temporary, I had all my surgeries. I was still working out. I was still big, strong, and I could still operate. And so I went back over to Afghanistan and worked for a year. I did 2010 in Afghanistan working for McChrystal on his counterinsurgency team, assessment team, the CAT team. And essentially what we were is, we knew the guy and we, everybody worshiped McChrystal. I'm not so fond of him these days, but I still think I respect him a lot. But what he was struggling with was like, hey, I don't feel like my message is getting down to the captain or the lieutenant at the FOB. I don't think, and I don't know what they're doing and how, when I hear success stories, how filtered is that? What am I getting? So, he sent all these guys who know what right looks like. And so what we did is, we'd go out and just patrol with the guys, and so it's fun. It's so fun that it's like for a while there, I was getting more trigger time after I retired.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yes. So, but
wow, that's crazy. So you guys were authorized to carry and do all that crap.
Oh yeah. We were, the whole deal. Contractors, you know, I mean, we had contractor limits, but basically, you know, it's kind of waived to a degree. We just couldn't be in command of anything, you know, but there's a lot of what we started to see. There's a lot of really good things that young officers or smart, savvy NCOs were doing that was making a difference with CERT money and you know, the monies that they could, you know, do like little projects for when they would do stuff. And so we would write that up and send it back, and we were like VFR direct to General McChrystal and his team. He had his own little think tank, basically a bunch of handpicked senior or mid-grade SEAL officer, SF officer guys from the
and
command.
McChrystal, was he a SEAL before?
No.
Okay.
McChrystal?
Yeah.
No, he was a Ranger.
Oh, that's right. He was an Army guy. Okay, never mind. Got it. Yeah. All right, go.
And so like also like my job, because of where I ended up working the last 10 years of my life, was real human centric stuff, you know.
And human, for those who don't know, is
human intelligence collection or human intelligence analysis, or sometimes it's actually human intelligence operations, right?
Right.
Unlike hiring a proxy to do it, you know, we got to go do stuff sometimes. And then there was like 4 different fusion cells centers in Kandahar, and they weren't talking. There'd be information that wasn't getting passed to other units. And so I looked at that. That was kind of like my original job there, to like look at how information flowed, and, you know, how the task force was stovepipe and everything, you know, and you know what I mean? There was a lot of turmoil. But in 2010, 2011, that was a real key period, because there was all the things were, the efforts internationally were aligned in Afghanistan, I thought, at the end of 2009, and for a couple of years, to actually do what we wanted to do, was basically clear space and hold it and stabilize it. You know, he had this, what he called the ink spot theory. You clear and hold, bring governance, reconstruction, development, justice, rule of law, whatever, to a place that's stable, and you kept the Taliban out, and you train up local people to take over and whatnot. And then slowly the idea was that these would all start to merge. We'd squeeze out the Taliban, because they wouldn't have the leverage over the population and whatnot. But you know, things changed when his plan for Helmand required, you know, we learned our lesson from Shinseki when he said, no, you're going to need about 400,000 people to stabilize Iraq. Remember? You know?
Yeah. Oh, I was there.
I got
yeah, I remember that. Guy got vilified for being honest.
Yeah, for being like a, you know, rational thinker. And then, you know, Fourth ID doesn't even get in through the north. So, you know, it's like a shit sandwich, but you know, that's history. Yep. Anyway, so when he went with his 3 options to the commander in chief,
we're talking about McChrystal?
The McChrystal wanted, which was the most robust package. Okay. Because it was basically going to be just, you know, it was going to be no more playing around. We're going to take the Kajaki Dam. We're going to bring power back to these areas. We're going to destroy the poppy crops. We're going to take back Helmand province. You know, we're going to control the entry points into the country. Get rid of, you know, Walid Karzai. You know, he was a big, you know, all those guys. And for whatever reason, the war that the president said was the right war and we need to win, he didn't pick that choice. And then the Rolling Stone article came out where guys were just venting in a bar.
Yeah.
And he got called back and relieved. So at that point, Petraeus came in and took over. But it was just a different feeling, because Petraeus wasn't, you know, you had the task force there and all the national assets. Guys were going out every night and just, you know, slaying bad guys. I mean, they were doing really good work. And so that nighttime, you know, that kinetic national force Then you had the Marines doing good work, and SFA teams building VSOs, VSPs, and the agency was, building a good paramilitary network. Everything was kind of lining up, kind of focusing towards some sort of, I wouldn't say success necessarily or an end, but it would have been a different atmosphere. The landscape would have looked different in a year and a half, where now there's big pockets of the country that are controlled.
Right.
By
okay.
ISIS.
All right. So I because you've got a ton of knowledge that I think needs to kind of come out if we can. But I got 3 questions. I had 2 up until you just said that. Now I got 2. So one, the first thing you said was you were there to kind of, I guess, unblur the disconnect between McChrystal and his captains, right? His captain, his 03 grade officers, his company commanders, I guess, as we would call it, the guys that are still at the tactical level, because he's way up at strategic, right?
Yeah, he's comm ISAF, so he's
okay.
In, yeah.
So what were you able to? So this might be 2-part question in one. So were you able to figure out what the disconnect was, and was the disconnect maybe tied to the fact that, all these regions of the country, like the RC East, the RC Capital, RC, was that tied to it? Is that the fact that like everyone saw like, this is my little section and I'm going to run my section, and, I'll, whatever the boss asks, I'll tell him, but I'm still going to just worry about my little piece of Afghanistan?
I would say yes, that's true. And that's typical, even if you like research division of labor in World War II.
Yeah.
And post World War II, when they, and same thing in Bosnia, Yugoslavia, when they carved it up and you had the British sector, French sector, Italian sector, American sector, yada, yada. But really it wasn't as simple as him saying that. It was more like, is the strategy at all levels clear? Like when it's put out, what happens to it down through the chain?
Right.
And then when it gets, what does it look like? It's a telephone game. When it gets down to the cop level and you're doing route clearance or you're doing whatever, and you see something, fresh eyes, young guy, fresh eyes, whatever. Hey, we could do this better or different. They come up with an idea or whatever, and it just never got past the Iron Major or the Lieutenant Colonel or whatever, because it wasn't their idea or whatever. And that's a little unfair, but
it may be unfair, but it may also be right.
Yeah, there's just a lot of layers of bureaucracy. And also you got to remember too, it wasn't just a unilateral thing. I mean, we had a lot of European
absolutely.
Yeah. So each, like the Norwegians and the Dutch, and they had their own part of the country, right?
Right.
And Germans were up north, et cetera. And then we had that out in the west was
the British had Leatherneck, right?
Yeah, British were there first, and then Marines came out to help them.
Yeah.
And then you go up to Herat, where I ended up later on, which is right on the border with Iran. And it's just like this completely different world.
That country is it.
Yeah.
First, because it's not, I wouldn't say it's huge, but literally every sector is completely different from a topography standpoint, from a people standpoint, language, as you probably know. I mean, everything about that country gets very different very quickly.
Yeah, it's and you got Pashto and Dari.
Yeah, well, then you bring in the religion, right? Exactly, and
then you got the Taliban, are the remnants of what are fight against the Soviet Union.
Yep.
And just it was a challenging problem. And then all it takes is a couple of mess ups, where someone does kill people accidentally or whatever, and that
was a bad time.
They just it's a complex problem, and we made progress. We did some good things. That effort was a good thing. Because, like, for example, when I was sent to Herat as a RC East CAT leader, so I answered to the commander of RC East, that's the Italian and the Spanish. Okay, so they had Camp Victory. Well, they didn't have Camp Victory. The Marines had that, but they had, I forgot the names of their camps. They're co-located. And so, every day I'd go in and I'd talk to the general, the Italian general, and I'd say, hey, this, General blah, blah, blah is, he knew everybody called us McChrystal spies. So essentially we got kind of, no one got in our way. Let's put it that way, right?
Yeah.
I want to talk to the general. Okay, his schedule's open, whatever. It's like, so that worked in our favor. But at the same time, I had to win those people over, right? I had to say, look, what are you not getting? What do you need? What do you think? I call it Operation Rockstar. It's kind of like a case officer thing. It's like not about me. It's about you, buddy. How do you make it win?
What was your takeaway from like working with the Italian guys? Did you?
Well, it's honestly, I was there when their first 3 guys, like they were doing this like overland supply convoy to Balam or Gob or something like this little place up in the northwest. And they got ambushed and they lost 3 soldiers. They hit an ID. And you would have thought that it was 9/11 in Italy, right? Like everybody was just like, they had like mourning and losing their mind and, oh my God, they're national heroes. And they, I'm not saying they weren't, but they just weren't used to getting punched in the nose.
Yeah, I was gonna say it made it real for them. You guys just aren't here to just hang out in the nice calm spots all of a sudden. Now it's real, right?
Now it's real, and it was one of those political moments back in Italy where, now the Italians are like, why are we there? Should we pull out? Should we stay? And yada yada. So a lot of politics, a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And so there was that, and the Spanish, they did their thing, whatever it was. There's always an element of every country that whether they're Polish, German, Norwegian, Dutch, Aussie, even Italian, they want to go out and they're just as good a war fighter as anybody else, right?
Right.
But that's the person, not necessarily the mindset.
Exactly.
It's like, hey, we want to survive our 3-month deployment here. You know what I mean? It's like, so if people don't have to go anywhere or whatever, then, what I mean? So you're kind of struggling with that. How do you motivate people? But what we found things that we could do because of the uniqueness of that area and the relationship there's a lot of Iranian influence in that area. It was a very stable area. It's just when you left and you went and you found these pockets of hardcore Taliban, and the Marine SOTF guys were there. They had just stood up, the SOCOM SOTF guys, and had a lot of fun with them going out. And we had this, what they call it, clear, hold and engage. So we would with a bunch of Afghan commandos go clear a village, hold it, and then the village would be empty by the time we got there, right? Because all those people had left because the Taliban were there. And then by the time we'd get in and chase them away, they would come walking out of the hills, like, the elders would come, and then we'd sit down. In fact, that one picture that you have.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's like right after they came back down out of the hills. So we just did a little snapshot right there, talking to them.
That's cool.
And, working on the next phase. Like, what are we going to do? How are we going to make this? What can we do different and stuff like that? So I learned a lot. It was a good time. I just,
but even then, man, like because you've probably heard of this, whether it's on the Zooms or whether it's just us and some of the guys who've worked to end this stuff. But I mean, even the year you're describing, that is, did you ever wonder, like, does this stuff end? Like, how long are we here for?
Yeah. What was funny? The things that stood out to me was, okay, so it's 2010, 2002, we went in and kind of toppled them, right?
Yeah.
So it's still kind of fresh. It's like 8 years, right? Mm-hmm. But it's ramping up in a positive way. Like we've got support. We've got international organizations that are ready to fill the void and start training their counterparts with rule of law and governance and all those things. And so people were all on board as a coalition. But security, it's easy you blow up a couple of innocent NGOs and now people start rethinking it, and people get weak-kneed. But what I noticed that was money would be spent. Let's say a police station. Say these guys got like this mud hut police station. Mm-hmm. So someone would say, "Hey, we'll build them a brand new police station. We'll spend a bunch of money there," and they'd come in and they'd build this great compound and all this kind of stuff. And then the guys would go to it and they'd sleep on the roof, right? They wouldn't even use the building because it wasn't practical for their lifestyle, right? 100 degrees in the daytime, everybody sleeps on the roof, because at night, by the time it cools down. Not only that, but when they built stuff, it was 4-foot thick mud walls, right? You could shoot a 105 at it. It's not going to go through it. You know what I mean? So it's like they were safer in their mud hut compounds, and they just, these relics, these like statues of. So we started to, one of the things we tried to emphasize was, hey, you need to engage, even if it's an Afghan, you need to go find the Afghan person and build a connection. If whoever the architect, whoever the people that are designing it, that's where we need to get more input. We need to get more understanding of local culture and like, what would you do? What's the best thing? What do you need? And oftentimes that was kind of the message, it was like, we're not spending enough time establishing relationships with people so that they can make the choice. And we always made this joke, or this, at the end of the day, it's a bake-off, right? The Taliban bake their cookies and then we bake ours, and then the people choose the cookies they like the best.
Right.
And, from most people outside of Kabul or Bagram or Kandahar or Herat, their world was in between in the valley they lived in. They didn't look at the country as in any kind of national way. It was
right.
Based, what it is. Like literally, we live from that ridge line to to that ridge line.
Yeah.
That's happened. That's not the first time those kinds of lessons have been learned.
No, but that's kind of always been my I guess just as I gotten older, because like when I was younger, like I was a little younger than you when I joined, and I was 22 in Iraq during the invasion. I turned 23 over there, but when you're that age, you don't think about any of this shit. But as you get older, you start to realize, like, all right, we're trying to bring a concept to people that they have no, I hate to say the word concept, they don't have a concept of the concept we're bringing them, right? And so, like you described, like, so yes, they don't look past that ridge compared to this ridge, because this is what they know. This is their home. This is where they live. This is all they're concerned about. The idea of a nation, none of that stuff really registers with them because they've never thought of that. And I always like to bring it up to people. I've had, younger family members who were way too young to understand 9/11 or any of that stuff, who've asked these questions. And it always comes back to, for me at least, trying to get them to understand it is like, look, and I applaud the effort, and I respect the sacrifice made by us. Is just, we're in areas of the world that if we think about our concept of democracy and what we went through to get it and where we are, how relatively young it is and what we struggle with today, I always come back to, if they wanted it, they would have thought of it already. Just because of how old their civilizations are and just how long they've been doing any type of government. You feel like the natural order and the natural progression would have kind of led them to entertain the idea.
Yeah, and it's like, they say here, all politics is local, and the most efficient form of government is usually local, county, and sometimes state.
Yeah.
And then after that, it all goes to shit, right? Because you might, but generally that's the model. Well, so
this ties back into General McChrystal and wondering why there's a disconnect.
Yeah. So the team, though, it wasn't just all pipe hitters who were on it. Like we had
right, exactly. Yeah, I know.
One cat who Troy Anderson, who's a district attorney. Like he might even be the district attorney right now in Boston of one of the boroughs. So super sharp prosecutor, and we brought him out, and so he would go out and engage all the judges. Right, he would talk to them. He'd like, hey, I want to learn about how you guys solve cases. Like if someone comes with a dispute, teach me. So he learned like how the process worked. Right, say it's a land dispute, and they had a real fair kind of process, and what he realized is, hey, there's a gap of people that can be prosecutors or defenders. And so he realized he had to like work with them to build a deeper bench of Afghan educated guys who
right.
knew Sharia law and knew how to solve problems. Because the idea is you want, if you're going to have any kind of a successful government, you have to be able to provide justice to people and security. All right. I mean, those are the two things: human security and justice. And the Taliban, historically, I mean, they did it. I mean, and they did it, by the book. It wasn't like, I don't like you, I'm going to kill you, give him his goat or whatever it was. It was like, no, the Sharia law says X, Y, Z. You can't prove this and that. So people are like, well, if I have a problem, I get quicker response from them. And so, there was a lot of effort to try to like, to work on the actual issues that would make a difference with the local population, right? Some of the shortfalls were, actually, first I'll start with a good thing. The Afghan National Army was being built in a traditional way. So when that was the one area that I noticed, it didn't matter where the guys were from. The local population was proud of the Afghan National Army. So they'd come rolling in looking like an army, and it didn't matter if they were Uzbek or whatever. They were like, wow, we're proud of them. The weakness in the whole thing was the policing action, the Afghan National Police, to where you could literally be, one day you're the thug on the block, the next day you got a badge.
Yeah.
There's the most important.
I mean, that's like us in the West, if you think about it. Like,
yeah,
go back.
I mean, yeah.
It's Tombstone. All that is Wyatt Earp and all, man. You just get deputized. No,
right. Except that guy's a thug and he's just going to roll you for money, right? And the thing is, like, what is the face of justice in any country? It's the police.
Right.
So if you're looking at that guy and you're like, he's corrupt, so you don't have respect for him. So it's like, that was that thing. And, we constantly struggled with, and how do you change that? And, we could talk for hours about, lessons learned and whatnot, but, if anything, there's a lot of key takeaways. So, what it's done is helped. We've captured a lot of stuff that went to call, Center for Army Lessons Learned. Yeah. And, it's been incorporated into other things. And so it's also affected how we deal with some other countries, like Somalia.
How have you seen, so I got it, just last question on that, but then, because then I want to go backwards on the bio thing. But no, we talk about the Center for Army Lessons Learned because, it's been there forever. And there's a lot of stuff feeding into it. But how about from where you left and came from, how do you feel the SEALs have kind of taken what they've gone through throughout the GWAT, the global war on terror? And do you feel like there's been a lot learned and implemented and changed, or where do you see that from your last vantage point?
So it's funny. So when I came in, I mean, it's like,
because you went through very different era, and then you progressed to this. So
Cold War, it's like Man.
Did you have any involvement with the first Gulf War? Did the SEALs have any real?
Yeah, they did, but didn't.
Yeah.
But even before that, so you were basically came in during the Cold War, all hyped up, and you think you're going to be, and you got to also put it. All of our cadre was either ex-Vietnam guys,
Yeah.
Mac B. Sog, right?
It's a crazy world difference.
Crazy world, slitting throats and putting baseball cards on people's foreheads and shit. Doing good shit, good stuff, but really making a difference because, it scared the bejesus out of the VC. I mean, it was, I mean, it's relative when I say good stuff.
Got it.
Some gender studies, social sciences professor is going to disagree with me on that, I guess. But anyways, so that was kind of who was steering us, and the old. You need to carry a loadout and a half. I don't know if that was a doctrine when you came up, but a loadout and a half of magazines. So
no, we just refer to it as a basic load.
Yeah,
7 magazines, right? 7 magazines.
Yeah, well, for us it was 15 magazines.
Okay, well that's a lot. All right, yeah, way more than my poke self was carrying. Yeah, all right.
That was before body armor, right?
I came in before we did the invasion without body armor. At least I didn't get it. I heard Third ID guys had it, but they were probably the people that were important. I was just there. But yeah, go ahead. All right, sorry.
Yeah, so you had that whole thing, and then you had to be able to have, how do you break an ambush? You assault through it, right? You have
to. Tactics have definitely changed in the last 20 years.
Yeah, sustained rate of fire for 2.5 minutes without any break. 60s talking, peels, and you know what I mean. It's just that old school stuff that still applies. Actually, speed, violence of action, and luck, firepower. But it works. Anyway, so that happened, and then in '80, then we did we had some guys that were involved in Panama invasion.
Okay, yeah.
From my team, they're the guys that went and blew up the Porus, Noriega's boat. And my roommate at the time, he was at SEAL Team 4. He was a 60 gunner, Rick Asherman. He ended up. He said, "Yeah, in December, he's like, yeah, we're doing a bunch of training. I might not be home for Christmas. Blah blah blah." He didn't tell me what he was doing, but we could see what was happening.
Yeah.
He did the Patia airfield raid, where that was kind of the big kind of things didn't go well there. And that's where the leadership changed H hour by like 15 minutes. Guys weren't in position. Initially, they were going to patrol around in the darkness of the airfield to get to Noriega's plane, and then use standoff to get to disable the plane. And at the last minute, I don't know who it was some general, he pushed it forward, and it was like go go go, and people were sprinting across a lit airfield, and they ran into a hornet's nest, and a bunch of guys got shot. And Rick was one of them. He got shot. He got shot in the ass, actually. It's pretty funny. He actually got shot.
A real thing. People actually do get shot in the ass. It's a real thing. Well, it's not just a Forrest Gump movie.
It's even better because he was like a radio man or electrician's mate or some rate that didn't even matter, right? Mm-hmm. And he was running across the airfield. His platoon was just like decimated. And a round came by, and while he was in mid stride, it went under his leg, just missed the jimmies, and entered right behind his balls, and came out like the right side of his ass, right? So and he's shooting, he's doing good and everything.
Was he a Smurf though?
No, he wasn't a Smurf. But so when he came back, we lived together, and I used to pack his wounds, pack his dressing every day and stuff like that. But he told me what happened, and that was just one of those things where we still had that. We had a long enough time where this is where commanders sometimes don't follow their own dictate, and that is, hey, you plan your dive your plan your plan. You only deviate to the secondary or the tertiary, right? You don't. I mean, because there's so many moving pieces. If you change H hour, I mean, now you're figuring it out on the fly, right? And so, but there's that, and then after that, our ally in the Gulf took Kuwait, Saddam Hussein. And so we spun up for that. My first platoon ended up getting on a MEU with some Marines, steamed all the way across the Mediterranean, got there. And of course, third ID or fourth ID or whoever it was, and and everybody in the South, the war was over by the time we got there.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm very grateful. I passed out MREs to like Kurds and shit. Grabbed up the stuff on landmine, and went back home. And after that, the 90s turned into the Yugoslavia period. So I did a bunch of time in and out of Bosnia, Yugoslavia. Either supporting the national force with war criminals, hunting them down, or actually I did one deployment. You might be familiar with this. You came in after 9/11, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So there was this program called the JCO, Joint Commissioned Observer. And essentially what it was an SFA team that would get sent in along with British SBS and other guys. And so they divided up Bosnia after, at the ceasefire before the Dayton Accords were done. And they'd send these teams and they'd live in each of these districts. And some of the SEALs got folded into it. And our job was to go out and meet the mayors, meet the population, talk to people, kind of get ground truth. But we didn't wear body armor. We didn't wear Kevlars. We just drove around kind of hey, we're the soft power guys. I mean, we had stuff, but we just didn't, wear it. It was in the, you wore your pistol. And our job was really just to kind of drink rakia with the mayors and get to know them and everything and win them over, right?
I wish another life would have been great.
Yeah, it was kind of like Det A, a soft version of Det A kind of thing. If you had to compare it to something, if you know your SF history from the Cold War, the guys in Berlin, and but it was really kind of cool because we had free reign. We could go wherever we wanted. We blew past every checkpoint.
Yeah.
Italians trying to wave you down. We're like, yeah, fuck you. We got S4 cards.
So then that was my question I wanted to come back to. So was this around the time? So what is the Caucuses? Talk to me about that. What do we got going on there?
Yeah. So Franz Ferdinand Tito, or however you say his name, Tito, was the guy who controlled the Balkans, basically.
Okay.
And he was a communist, but he wasn't a Stalinist. So
he wasn't a bad commie.
No. He wasn't. He wasn't
more of a new breed. Wasn't the old school guy.
He was like
commie light.
Yeah, dictator. And so he
figured out, let me just skip the whole for the people thing. I'm just going to control the people.
Yeah, well, what he did was because you had this, that's the melding pot right there of where Islam, Croats, Serbs, they all kind of converge in that area, right? And they've all got just centuries of animosity and whatnot. And Tito controlled that throughout World War II as well, and was the resistance. He kept the Germans out of.
What was his religious? What was his religious background?
He was actually a. Let me think here. I want to say he was a Croat or Orthodox or something like that.
Okay.
He wasn't a Muslim.
Right. Okay.
And the Croatia, they're not Muslim. I mean, there are some, but
yeah.
Anyway, so he was famous because his resistance force is what kept Germany from taking that part of the southern part of Europe into Greece, and then being able to come around and through Bulgaria and Romania, and it was pretty much like leave me alone, I got this. And then when it came time for him, he got older, and but he was a strong man. And what he did was he played each of the countries against each other. He knew if he kept everybody off balance, nobody could coalesce, right? So when it was
very Saddam Husseinish.
Yeah, maybe so. But it was more ethnic and religious, like the Serbs. He'd pit each other against each other, right? People against each other, so to speak, just to keep them annoyed, and keep control of the different countries. Albania, Montenegro, Serbia, Croatia, Yugoslavia, what's the other one up north? Anyway, but when he died, when he passed away, Slobodan Milosevic,
this fucking guy,
he rose up and he wanted to be the next Tito, right? So basically, he rallied a bunch of events that stirred up a bunch of discontent, which was pretty much anti-Islam, anti-Muslim, which in some ways appealed to people because they felt like they were being, the non-Muslims were being oppressed. So he was the adjutant, basically, and that's what led to the conflict there, right, between the two. Because what happened is Moldova, Montenegro. Okay, the wall falls, 91,
right,
and then suddenly countries start declaring their own independence. Right. Croatia, Montenegro, and then the Republic of Yugoslavia said, we want to be independent too. And the problem was the Yugoslav army was composed of people from all the different federated states.
Oh shit.
So you had like battalions of Serbians in Croatia, right, who were not loyal, like we're loyal to our country, and so they had these like little like mini coups where they fought back against,
that I was gonna say that had to be such a difficult time to just have any command and control, right? I mean, this is pre-internet, like there's there's no real way to control people. There's no cell phones. Like that had to be such a strategic nightmare.
And what ends up happening is the Serbs overstepped their bounds. I mean, human rights wise, we all know the story of Srebrenica and other massacres by Serbs against Muslims and Croats, and that kind of raised the got them up on the radar. And then the UN was like, what do we do? And the UN at the time they didn't intervene and come. They were peacekeepers or givers or whatever. And so we know the story of like the Dutch in Srebrenica being surrounded by the Serbs, and basically, they had they were powerless, and they marched all these people off and massacred them.
Fucking nuts,
that just started it was ethnic cleansing, genocide. So it was
so what was your mission there though? Then what, so you're there
at the time. For me, it was like in the early 90s. I was at Unit 2 in Stuttgart. So our platoon.
I went to Stuttgart once for an annual training.
Did you, for what?
Annual training when I was in the reserves in the Army. We did annual training there because that's the only spot we could do it. Yeah, that was the first place. Me and my buddy, we managed to distract a German wine kiosk, and we may or may not have acquired strategically 3 bottles of God, what's that wine they drink? The white wine.
Not Rakia.
No. It was in Germany.
Oh, Gewürztraminer.
No. It's a
Riesling.
Yes, the Riesling.
Yes. Riesling, yeah.
Strategically acquired based off of distraction and sleight of hand. Yeah. There you go. Okay, so there you go. You're in Stuttgart. All right, yeah, because I remember there was because I didn't know the SEALs guys were there. I knew because that's Patch Barracks, right, for the Army.
Yeah. So there's Patch. Patch was that
was the Green Beret dudes.
Yeah, that's where USASOC was, I think, right?
Yeah.
And Panzerkaserne in Bublingen was where 10th Group, Charlie 110.
Okay.
So they were there, and they're the SIF. So for UCOM, they're the SIF commanders in extremis force guys, and so they were there, and we were I think we were in Sindelfingen or maybe Patch. I can't. We had a unit there too, but mostly we supported like the guys that were deploying throughout the region. You know, that was the thing. Or we did JSITs, things like that. But that I was just there for 6 months. And then when the Bosnia stuff started, actually the early 90s, the national force, you know, the tier 1 guys were actually working in there. They were doing, you know, they were doing good stuff. I mean, direct action kind of stuff before the ceasefire and then peace accords. And then after that, it became looking for war criminals. The persons indicted for war crimes, they were called PIFWICs. That was the acronym, because if you have to have an acronym.
You do have to have an acronym, or else shit doesn't count.
Yeah, and so there's multi levels to that. Like if a guy was rolled up, you know, he was brought to a spot and then he was extradited, and our role, a lot of our roles sometimes was as on the regular SEAL teams. I wasn't a member of JSOC at the time. Well, they weren't even JSOC then, or they were, yeah, but I wasn't blue or green, you know, right? Obviously. So we would be the guys that would take them and then put them on the plane and then fly them to The Hague. That was called the Eagle package or whatever. So we got to play, you know, and stuff like that. And then we did a lot of force protection, escorting people around, and you know, every now and then supporting them. That was the early to mid 90s. And then there's stuff going on in Africa, you know, with the West Africa and whatnot. So, you know, there's a lot to say. I don't know what you.
Yeah, no, I was like, do you? Because we're going to get into the G.I. Jane story here quickly, but I guess someone like yourself, who's came in at a pretty, I don't know, you highlighted that you joined because of a very specific thing. You know, it was the Iranians bombing that strait, and that's why you wanted to come in. But then you came in right as like a very huge major world event took place with the wall. You found yourself in this, like, I guess one of the worst humanitarian issues in our time, at least in mine, with the stuff that was going on in Bosnia and the other areas you were at. You rolled right into Desert Storm, where you handed out MREs. That was good. And then, well, no, that was before the MREs came before that. So you went that, and then we rolled right into 9/11, and then so
the gap,
it hasn't ended. Like nothing. Like, have you ever known? Or is this just something that? Because to me, I get it. In a way, I get it, and in a way, I'm kind of, I don't know how I feel about it. Well,
let's just say, like, okay, so I did, but by 99, I'd run two deployments at SEAL Team 8. They're all 6-month deployments. 2 deployments at SEAL Team 2, 6 months. I did 6 months in Bosnia with a JCO group, Joint Commission Observers. I did 3 months in, you know, as a liaison officer. I had to do my chief time there at was it Sakure? I'm missing something. And then various little, you know, short little things. So, you know, I'd already done like 8 deployments, right? And of course, like they're not war deployments, but we did do things in West Africa where when Zaire fell, Mobutu Sese Seko and all that stuff, you know, we went in and, you know, did NEOs, brought people to, and then we went into Sierra Leone, we went into Liberia, we did that stuff, you know. So we were busy doing things. I went into like, we were the first people into the Black Sea after the wall fell. You know, first people in Romania,
that's nuts,
and Bulgaria. You know, so it's, you know, a lot of that kind of experience where you get history lessons, but at the same time, you're like, man, when are we going to just go start killing people? I mean, that's, let's face it, that's what you want to do, right? You want to do your job. But because we came in early, when everything did kick off, it was, we're more senior. We're E6s, E7s, E8s,
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's where I tied back into, like, it's hard to fool guys like yourself then. So yeah, well, you're and I only bring that up because I'm just curious, like, as someone who at that rank where you're really starting to see all this stuff take place, like, what were you thinking at that point? Like, were you still motivated to do all this stuff? Were you wondering why behind it? Was there just like, what are we doing? Like, because none of this has really ended. It really hasn't. It really hasn't ended for probably is when your career is when it all started. Like, we're literally looking at like 30 some years of constant deployment, especially for your field, but like, it's not ended. There's no real peacetime.
Yeah. And to that point, I mean, it's one thing to want to deploy and
I get that. I totally get the young guys who come in, that's all they want to do, right? But now someone who's like mid-level or mid-career.
Yeah. So the difference is that it's like, so you're mid-career, you're past the 10-year mark. You're like, what do I do? Right. I mean, you're trying to make that calculation. What we had going for us is you could screen for DAMNEC. You could screen for Dev Group. Okay. So I screened for Dev Group. I got.
What is that?
What's that?
What is the Dev Group?
A Naval Special Warfare Development Group, which now,
gotcha.
Thanks to Joe Biden, he's the one who outed him after Neptune Spear. After they got, he called him SEAL Team 6, right?
So, okay. So SEAL Team 6.
Yeah. So, you have to screen for that. You have to be a certain, rank, E5, E6, with X amount of deployments. You go through a screening process, blah, blah, blah. And, they don't take chiefs very often, E7s, because they want to breed their own chiefs in their system. And this is where the difference between today is when you come into the teams, you're a special operations guy, SO. Mm-hmm. That's your MOS. You don't go to corpsman school. You don't go to radioman school. You don't do any of that stuff. But being an earlier guy as a corpsman, to make rank, I had to compete with all the other corpsmen in the Navy, right? I had to take a test. So they're looking at me like, how does this guy rank against this guy on the submarine or this guy on the ship? What has he done, right?
Right.
So, we had to like check certain blocks. Like for us, it's independent duty corpsman school. It's a year long. It's like being a PA. The other one was 18 Delta. So I did 18 Delta as well. Of course, it was a little shorter. I didn't have to do the first, 91 Bravo crap, but we did the short course down at JFK. So you had to do those things to be competitive for advancement. Right. So that when the board's looking at your package, they're like, this guy's a 4.0 sailor. He's done this and this and this, and good leader, good write-ups, yada, yada. The problem is when I screened to go to the other place, the guys were up front. They're like, hey, we'd love to have you. You're good you're a good shooter. You're a good operator. You fit, we think you'd work. But I mean, up front, we're going to tell you, you're not going to be available we're going to get 2 years out of you, because green team is going to last almost a year. And we want to get, a year or two out of you deploy wise before you'll be able to go take care of your career moves. Right. And so it just didn't line up. Right. And that's cool. It just, that's what the cards were. So right around that time, 98, 99, I heard about this other place, and I screened for that and got selected, right? This other special mission unit so in 99, I went up there and went through another selection, and
this is SEAL Team 66.
It's actually a jointly manned special mission unit. Let's leave it at that.
Got it.
Okay. And I mean, you'd know who it was if I said it, but maybe you wouldn't. Doesn't matter. It goes back. It's got a great lineage. It goes back to the OSS, and it's essentially guys that know hard skills, but they learn how to do things in onesies and twosies.
Right.
And so I got there in '99. I went through selection out west, out in Nevada, and made it through that. And then I had to go through a year of training, CTQC, qualification course training. And then you, once you're in, you're out, you're out operating. So that's when the really fun stuff started happening. So we went back into Bosnia at that time, early 2000. And now we're actually hunting people, Karadzic and all these low level guys. And so
wait, back then or right now?
No, in the year 2000.
Oh, okay, I got you. I was gonna say, man.
Yeah. And then since then, the unit has done a lot of great things. But I did almost 11 years there, and did a lot of deployments.
I mean, you really have 14 of them from skimming through the bio, and
14, yeah, plus a couple.
And you never any injuries or anything while you were gone, or? You've been pretty fortunate, man. I mean, I get it. You got a lot of surgeries lined up, but you're pretty blessed to be sitting here just shooting the shit with me and drinking bourbon.
Yeah, sometimes, like that's why I always respect infantry units. That's why I respect Marines.
Yeah.
And route clearance guys and Rangers and whatnot, because it's pretty simple. Go destroy that thing. Go take that village, right?
Yeah, right.
Run into the bullets, kill more of them. You know what I mean? So it's a little different. Whereas we're like, okay, we're going to go in first and see what we could see and tell you what's there. And, or we're going to go in and shape something, or we're going to do onesie twosies, or do some SAP program or restricted handling thing, just, and it could be a mundane thing, but it's in the big picture, it was really important. So, as far as, wear and tear goes, I went in with, a group of 10th group guys, agency guys, and then, us before the war. And we linked up with, our hosts in the north, and essentially
this is Iraq.
In Iraq, yeah.
Okay,
so
yeah,
2002,
yeah,
October and so we basically did all the targeting. We went and dimpied everything. So, and then at the same time, we're trying to figure out what's true. Like, oh yeah, there's weapons of mass destruction everywhere, and then you talk to the source and find out it's full shit. But we did find Russian MiG-23s buried in the sand.
Yeah, I remember that story.
Yeah, I mean, so it's who knows? My personal feelings, I think, and I'm not speaking for anyone. This doesn't represent anyone. I just think that whatever was viable at the time, Saddam sent it to Syria. That's what I think. I mean,
so you saw Syria. Okay, so I'm not speaking for anyone, and I am doing exactly what you said. You say Syria, I say Iran.
Dude, the Iranians and Iraqis hate each other.
Even then, when they found the opportunity to have a joint enemy in us?
No, because the Persians, the Iranians, they're Shia.
Yeah.
Right. And Sunnis, I mean, there's Shia Iraqis, religious wise, but in the Sunni party of
so what is Syria? I thought Syria were the Shias too.
Yeah, they are. They are. That's why there's a link. Well, not all of Syria is
well, not all, but I always thought Assad was a Syrian, right? So that's why would they give it to him if they're just going to give it to another Syrian? Why not just give it to the Iranians?
Well, because the Syrians and the Iraqis weren't they didn't have any animosity towards each other.
Got
Whereas
okay.
Iran was always looking for an opportunity.
Yeah.
Remember Baghdadi and all those
around and find out.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Happened,
we're just throwing out ideas here based on bourbon.
Yeah. It's all conjecture at this point. If but a lot of it was just bad intelligence, to be honest with you. I mean, it's the age old thing where if Uncle Sugar shows up and the word gets out, hey, they're looking for this. These people aren't stupid, dude. They're going to string you along and keep you thinking something's coming.
So how did we get the bad intelligence though?
I don't know if we got bad intelligence, to be honest with you, because where I was, our folks who did that, my job was a little different. I answered to my chief, but I did whatever they needed me to do, but I also gave ground truth to my command and the guys in Qatar, that were running, that were leading.
Right. Got it.
Yeah. Hey man, this is what I see. Here's my sit rep.
Yeah.
Boom. Take it with a grain of salt. Boom. I didn't say that, of course, but here's what I'm your eyes and ear, directed telescope. And our chiefs were like writing back, going, hey, source, Pinocchio says XYZ. Well, he's not producing the goods.
Yeah.
Like, in other words, there was plenty of objective, honest pushback back to headquarters, back to USG. But I think the decision had already been made. It was just like, we're doing this. So, Colin Powell goes to the UN. He states his. I
remember it well.
Yeah, you remember that. And at that point, there's truth to there's truth to that, what he said. Mm-hmm. But, it depends on when people say, well, we never found WMDs. Well, I've got pictures of me with warheads of rockets that easily could have been filled with sarin or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a real thing. I think the problem is, and you would know this too, but I think what the average American who's not in your position, or, I mean, regardless of the shit that I've done, which doesn't compare, but I know enough, the average person, when they hear the word weapons of mass destruction or the term WMD, they automatically and only think nuclear weapon.
Right.
If you go and look at the actual termination or the actual terminology of what makes up a WMD, it's pretty vague.
Yeah, it's,
I mean, it specifies, but there's a lot of things that can fall under it, which is what I think you're alluding to. It's just,
COVID could be
it could. It absolutely could.
So it's like, I think what people had in mind was, when you're hearing the intel, like,
they thought there was going to be this massive nuclear missile the size of the World Trade Center pointed at New York, and it wasn't, because that's not how it worked.
Right. And sorry for stepping on you there, but there's in the late 80s, Saddam Hussein gassed 18,000 people in Halabja.
That happened,
right?
Gas is part of the WMDs.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, from our perspective, WMDs was NBC.
Yeah, right. Which is now CBRN, for those of you.
Mostly chemical weapons, right? And he had the capability was there because, to be quite honest, we probably sold it to him when they were fighting the Iranians, so we knew what they had, and that's the part that, from the early 80s, throughout the 80s, Saddam was our proxy, and to fight the Ayatollah, the Iranians, and then the Straits of Hormuz, the oil crisis, all that kind of stuff, and then he goes off the rails after that. So it's just a matter of sometimes intelligence agencies get influenced by objectives and politics, like going to happen. And you got to remember too, I mean, this is like this is, I'm going to sound like Alex Jones almost, but remember, Saddam tried to kill George Bush Sr.
That did happen as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I was his son, I'd be like, I don't give a fuck. Make up some shit so I can go get it, right?
If it was me, I'd have been just like, hey, set up the pay-per-view bout. We're gonna fight.
Yeah. And but the glorious part was actually what happened. I mean, it was just like once me and I don't want to say team, the group of guys I was with, we went out, did patrols. We used the Viper. Remember the Viper, the rangefinder?
Yeah, vaguely.
Binos. And so you could range find something. It would give you a GPS coordinate at distance. And so we basically identified like 60 targets around the Kamal weapons facility up in the mountains there, where Ansar Islam was. And so we had it all on the target deck. Then we brought in 10th group. First was this 103 and 102, I guess they're battalions or something like that. We brought those guys in. We did this big assault on this facility. But the night before that, well, it was the 28th of March, I guess, when everything kicked off, shock and awe, right?
20 minutes.
It was the most glorious sound in the world to hear 60 cruise missiles fly over your head and watch them hit all these
targets. That's fucking nuts, man.
And
see, you could have written a book by now. You have so many books written. You just haven't haven't done it yet.
But it's done. It's like it wasn't. Yeah, it's like why do I want to write a book? I mean, if I'm going to write a book, it's going to be about the fact that my kids don't know anything about what I've done so far, right?
That's just a good book. Also, like, there's a lot of options here.
Yeah, when we went to Arlington.
How old are your kids?
7 and 5.
Oh yeah, they got some learning to do.
Yeah, so I met my wife after I retired, and
probably for the best.
Yeah, she's smart, and met her over in Africa, and yeah, that's another podcast.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. We'll do that. We'll do the follow-up. Every time I get someone in the Navy on, I got to do a part 2. So why not?
Yeah. But the thing was, it's like, she didn't know what I did. And then I ended up working for the Cousins for a little while, if you know what I mean. After,
interesting.
After a while, I did some time with them and started a family. So once we tried to start a family, it was like my priorities shifted.
Fair.
No more taking contracts, no more deploying. I mean, and it's probably a good thing, because the mid 2010, from 2012 to 2018, or more. I mean, those guys, suffered a lot of losses. I went to a lot of funerals, but but it was good. I mean, I guess I'm trying to fill in the blank. We're still in Iraq. Where do you want to?
No, so what I want now, because we're gonna wrap it up. B. No, give me that G.I. Jane story with Demi Moore.
All right. So first, I got 2 stories. Right.
All right. Here we go.
So I'm a new guy, SEAL Team 8. I mean, so new and green that I don't have enough common sense to realize that I had a Jeep CJ7, right? And so I thought, I'm gonna get a personalized plate, right? And I got this plate that said SEAL Doc, because I'm a doc, I'm a corpsman, right?
That's original. I'm surprised it was even registered in that state yet.
Yeah.
That's
and I'm driving around, and I get pulled in, and some of the guys are like, the senior dudes are like,
bruh.
Bruh. So that didn't last long. So I took care of that business, right? And then what's funny is I'm in like one of the local bars in Virginia Beach, and when did they make Navy SEAL with Charlie Sheen? It was like 89 or
80s. I thought it was 86.
No, it wasn't.
It was early. Hold on, I got this. Keep going.
89-ish. Because I remember, or 88. No, it couldn't have been 88. It had to be 90.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, 1990, July 20th.
Okay, so
25 million bucks. Wow,
what?
not very big hit.
No,
it only
wasn't.
cost 21 to make, so they made some money. So there we go.
Yeah, so
I love that movie. It just cracks me up.
It's a funny movie, man. I love it.
So anything with Charlie Sheen in it is great. So
it would have been way funnier if it wasn't for me. Let me tell you.
Oh, here we go. Here it comes.
So I'm in this bar drinking, and in comes Michael Biehn. All right, Michael Bihn's the commander of the platoon. Charlie Sheen is the junior officer, right? And or Michael Biehn might have been the task force commander. I don't know.
Who played him?
Michael Biehn. That's his name.
Oh, there it is. All right, got it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right, got him. Oh, okay. I know this guy. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember this dude.
I'm sitting at the bar. I think it's like the World Series, like the A's and the Dodgers or something like that, right? And I'm rooting for the A's, of course, right? Since
because fuck the Dodgers. That's why.
I used to go to, my grandma lived in Bay Farm, so I'd go up there and spend the summers learning how to make the perfect bourbon and Cokes for her.
That's awesome. We missed half of what we were supposed to talk about, but it's fine.
Yeah, and
that's how these work.
That's how they work. Anyway, I'm sitting there, I'm watching, and then here comes Charlie Sheen with his entourage, right? But Bean and I are like just chatting it up. Like I didn't recognize him. I didn't know who he was, right?
Yeah.
And he's asking me like, "Hey, yeah, what are you doing? You know, who are you?" And we're just chatting. I said, "Oh, I'm in the teams." He's like, "Oh, really? What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a corpsman." I go, "Really?" He said, "Really?" Well, right then in the middle of the movie, they fired their director for whatever reason. I don't know the politics of it. And he said, "Hey," then Charlie came in. He sat down and he introduced me, and we're talking. And he said, "Hey, this guy Andy, he's a corpsman. Hey, would you mind like meeting us like in the next day or two to go over some script? Rick Rossovich plays the medic in our platoon, right? And we don't think the scene is right the way he treats the guy." And I'm like, and I just done 18 Delta, right? So I used to drive around with a freaking med bag, hoping someone would have a car accident so I could.
With the license plate Seal Doc.
No. That was long gone. But I still have the plate, but
you should have donated it to him. You should have said, "Hey, make him wear this and put this on his car in the movie."
Yeah, I got my ass kicked. That's why I took it off, right? Basically, by some senior guys. You get riggers taped and stuck into the dip tank with a snorkel in your mouth. Don't change your mind, right? Anyway, so I'm like, yeah, I guess so. So I showed up and we went over the script and he's telling me what's happened. And it's a typical, "Oh, Chief's not going to make it." And they close the eyes. I'm like, "Well, what did you do? How'd you treat him? What were the wounds? You're the doc. What did you see? What's the script didn't say anything about, hey man, he's been hit in the chest. He's got, second chest wound, blah, blah. So we rewrote it and we made it look a little bit better. And so he uses some of the correct verbiage. If you watch that scene again, he'll say something like, "Yeah, hey, second chest wounds. I've got compression. I got a seal, blah, blah, blah." And help that out a little bit. And then, what was there's some other thing I gave some kind of, cheesy advice on, but I think it was because I didn't really give a shit that I met them, that they even talked to me. Right.
Well, yeah, that's usually how it works with anybody.
Yeah. So, but Michael Bihn's a cool dude. So is Rick Rossovich. If you remember him from Top Gun, he was Iceman's Rio.
Oh yeah. When you finally when I realized who it was, but that Michael Biehn guy, he always looked like a cool dude. He didn't look like a dick.
I think he was a SEAL in like one of the Aliens movies too, right? And then
you got that typecast going.
Here's their G.I. Jane.
G.I. Jane, here we go. Demi Moore. So no shit, there I was.
So G.I. Jane comes out, and
I saw that movie in the theaters with my dad as a kid.
And that was like When was that? That had to be early 90s.
1997.
Was it 97?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. August 22nd, 1997.
So that's why I was salty. That makes sense.
Yeah, you'd been in a while at this point.
Well, no, because what I did, I'm trying. I thought it was earlier, but
I did too. I thought it was like 93, but yeah, apparently 97. Yeah. There you go.
So you had some of the old Vietnam era frogs who retired, and they were advisors on the script, and blah blah blah, and hey, Demi Moore's. So every year the SEALs do a reunion, right? Mm-hmm. They do a West Coast reunion, they do an East Coast reunion, and it's a 4-day affair. It's a great time. People meet. The meeting house is where everybody gets together. It's a Chiefs club. Hey man, haven't seen you forever. It's free. Everything's free. Saturday is like a golf tournament, or maybe it's Thursday's a golf tournament. Friday's a meeting house. Saturday is a Capex, like a demonstration, where they kind of do the heritage of the SEAL community, like NCDU, World War II, UDT, cool. Korea, SEAL teams, and then today modern capabilities. And then after that, later in the evening, there's a big beach party down at the Naval Amphibious Base, Enlisted Beach. It's a band, all the beer's free, as everybody. It's just a big raging party. And then someone said, "Hey man, Demi Moore's here." And I'm like, "What?" Yeah, Demi Moore with, and there's like 3 of these old dudes. These are like a little entourage, like security dudes, right? 3, well, they'd be old. I'd be their age, I guess, now, but it's like, they were capitalizing on the thing. And so she's walking around, and a bunch of us we're smoking cigars and drinking beer and doing all this stuff. And so I thought, all right, I'm gonna go talk to her. And we're like, what? They're like, what? Yeah. So I grab a fresh beer out of the tap. And I grab a beer for myself, and I said, "Hey, Demi." I walked up to her. I said, "Hey, Demi, you like beer?" Because beer in the SEAL teams is like, like every Friday we tap a keg at noon. Okay, that's how it is. We do field day, clean everything. Well, no, first we do a monster mash. Like run, swim, run, whatever.
Yeah.
Come back, clean the place up, tap a keg, and then the weekend starts, right? But so it's an evening. I won't say I was lit, but I was just typically in my state. Yeah. And I walked up and said, "Hey," and I had a cigar and everything. And Demi, you like, so you're a frog man? And she laughed or something like that. I said, "You like beer then, right?" And I offered it to her. And she said, "Oh no, I don't drink beer." So this is Demi Moore talking, right?
Oh, okay.
Not realizing her environment, right?
Exactly.
I'm like, "What? You don't drink beer? I mean, why not?" Oh, whatever. I'm like, "Oh, that's fucked up." And I just took the beer and I turned and I poured it on her feet.
No, you did not.
Threw the cup down and walked away. And it's like, and those guys would look at me like, I'm like, "Hey, fuck you guys," whatever. I walked away. Because I'm like, hey, if you're gonna be ballsy enough to invade a SEAL reunion, then you better be ready to play.
When in Rome, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. And the funny thing was, last week, okay, this will be a good wrap up, I think, unless you want to. Unless you got anything else, and there's more.
Wrap this shit up, B.
So a buddy of mine, I have Nationals season tickets.
Okay.
And love baseball.
Same.
I'm going to make a lot of money on the Giants when they come into town. I'm telling you.
Go Giants. Free money right now.
And the Padres.
Oh my God. I am up so large right now. Just so hold on. Let me give you a thing to do for baseball, right? So always, whatever it is with your team, feel free to do it. But this specific line of betting goes all the way back to, I think, the 98 season. If you look, even today, any team who is favored on the money line at -135 up to -199 If you bet them for the last, like, we're going 23 years, you're at 63%.
Oh, really?
Okay. So literally every day I just throw $5 on every one of these teams, right?
Right.
As long as it's minus 135 to minus 199. And I always bet on the Giants no matter what, because especially against the Dodgers, because they're such underdogs. So I always start every season, whatever I do, I always start with $100, right? So for this baseball season, I started with $100 again, just doing the same $5 thing every time, because I like it. It's fun. It gives me something to do every day. But it's up to 152.
And just think, if that was Tesla stock.
Oh my goodness. Yep. We're doing Dogecoin, Drew. We're doing
Dogecoin. Yeah. Someone's got to give me an education on that.
I have no idea. I just bought
upside down, not upside down, but I'm so leveraged in season tickets right now. I'm just
nice.
But anyways,
yeah. Okay. So here we go.
So a partner of mine who was one of the agency CEOs who I worked with in Iraq, back in 2002, 2003, we reconnected, and he's a baseball fanatic, right? So he's retired now. He became a partner. We have 4 seats behind the dugout, like 6 rows.
Oh, wow. Nice.
They're
solid.
great. They've been season plan holders since 2005. So we're day one guys,
for the Nationals.
For the Nationals, yeah. I mean, we've worked our way.
Yeah. So you've gone to the World Series games and everything.
Went to World Series, dude. I went to World Series. Went to all the playoff games. Been to 3 no-hitters.
Oh wow!
My daughter has seen more hitters than you have.
That's fucking nuts.
7, right?
Damn.
Anyway,
it's fucked up, but all right.
So my buddy Mark, you know the book that's out now called The 3 Wise Men?
I've heard of it. Someone mentioned it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, was that you that mentioned that? I think maybe
I might have mentioned.
Yeah.
It.
No. I've heard the book. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So Jeremy Weiss, Ben, and Bo. Jeremy joined as a SEAL.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Well, okay. Yeah. This was you. Okay.
Yeah. And then he did his 8 years or whatever, and then he went over and worked for GRS and for the cousins, and his brother Ben joined the Army, became an SF guy, right? Mm-hmm. And then the youngest, Bo, joined the Marine Corps. So in Chapman, Camp Chapman out in Host, there was that asset. The Jordanians sent us the doctor that was supposed to know Osama bin Laden, yada yada, and he ended up the GRS guys, the guys who do all the protection, advised the chief of the base, like, hey, don't bring him into the compound. I mean, don't get starstruck. Just follow protocol. We bring him to a spot. We make him stand and show himself. The typical, like, make sure he's not armed, yada yada. And she blew all that off. The guy came. She invited him in the compound, and he blew up and killed nine people. Right, one of them being Jeremy. Okay, so that's the older brother of Bo. And then later on, there was another op in Afghanistan that where his SF brother Ben got killed, and my partner has kind of guilt remorse because he had a lot to do with that asset, the original asset, and then he was there when the other op happened. So he's got his own demons he's dealing with. But to make it right, Bo wrote the book, and what we tried to do is get the Nationals to. He said, "Hey," he's a partner of mine now. He said, "Can we get the Nationals to kind of like let Bo throw out the first pitch or whatever?"
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And one thing came to another, and we managed to make it happen. So last week,
cool.
We went to a game, and he threw out the first pitch, and he got well treatment. They showed a little montage of his family, his brothers, and it was just a really great thing. Awesome. It's like it's almost like the Dakota Meyer story. Not quite that. I don't know if you've read Dakota Meyer's book or not.
I haven't. Mm-mm.
Have you listened to the Jocko podcast for that?
No.
3 hours
I'm
long.
horrible
Dude.
at listening to podcasts.
I am too. But one night I turned it on at like 1 and I didn't shut it off till 4. And I was like, holy shit, what he had to do. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just all these just untold stories of just, great Americans. But anyway, so the Bo Weiss thing, I ended up talking to him. This ties up the Demi Moore story.
Yep. Here it is. Rounding third.
So we get rained at, we get this thunderstorm. We got to go up into the club. We're drinking. I'm like, what are you drinking? We're like, we got like stacks of, Maker's Mark, just pounding that stuff. And we were talking about something and somehow it came about, SEAL movies, and then it was G.I. Jane. And I said, oh yeah, I know Demi Moore. And I started to talk and he goes, wait a minute, stop. Were you the guy that poured the beer on Demi Moore's feet?
Sure the fuck
that's
was.
What my brother told me. I'm like, yeah, that was me. And he's like, holy shit. You just like made my freaking year, right? I'm like, I didn't think anything of it. I thought, fuck this bitch, whatever.
That's
but and it was just kind of like this full circle thing, where we're sitting there and I'm hugging this young Marine who's he's dealing with a lot of issues, but the book, I recommend it because it honors his brothers, and he's a good old boy from Arkansas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna fucking finally order that shit. I'm gonna order that as soon as we get done here.
Yeah, and then the last thing I want to say is maybe for future conversation, I'd like to talk to you about kind of what a lot of what I've done and what other people have done to kind of like come to grips and reckon with our careers.
Yeah,
and that it's not all traumatic.
Right.
Most of it is body chemistry changes. Most of it's like it's scientific. It's like and there's some great new ways of the vets are being prepared to enter into the world with proper nutrition and cognitive behavioral therapy and whatnot. So for me,
you want to do it next week?
Yeah, we can do it.
All right. Well, let's just do it next week.
Yeah. Sorry it took so long for me to.
No, it's never too long. This is perfect. But yeah, let's do exactly what you just said. We'll pick it up there next week and we'll just do part 2. Like I said, everybody from the Navy gets part 2.
Because we talk too much. Talk about our books.
Well, yeah, and you need to write one. It seems like. Sounds like. Nah, maybe not yet, but we'll get it. I mean, yeah. All right. Hey, so Drew, I do appreciate you spending your night with me. We're going to wrap it up there. We're going to pick this up next week. So everybody, please watch this one, like it, subscribe to it, write a review on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast, wherever you see this stuff on YouTube. We'll see Drew back here next week. And maybe we can get him to find one of these bottles between now and then. But it's an I.W. Harper 15 year. There you go.
Is that the one with the guy walking?
I think it is. Yep. He's walking. Well, he's bent over. He's tipping his cap with his
right.
Yeah.
He's an Englishman.
Yeah. I mean, the stuff's incredible. If you find it between now and then, please do yourself a favor, pick it up. All right.
Why are you such a Bob Dylan hater? Who
said I was hating Bob Dylan? Just don't know anything about him.
Heaven's Door?
Yeah, my thing with Heaven's Door and anything, it's the same stuff with Maddie's wine stuff. There's so many people that were involved in alcohol and they're just trying to make money off their name. Like,
yeah, I see that.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know anything about Bob Dylan's involvement. I just know Bob Dylan's old, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't know anything about what the fuck he's doing with bourbon. And if he does, great. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say he's just not really that involved on the day to day. That's all.
Well, next time we talk, I want to get an education from you on bourbons and rye. Like,
we're going to do it. Hey, we're going to do it. It's either next Tuesday or next Wednesday. You pick. We'll do it same time. All right, man?
Yes, sir.
All right, brother. Let me stop this. Oh, look at that. He got the salute going. I can't. Oh, wait. Fuck. You outranked me.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you retired as a lieutenant.